I want you to get together.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode to my Remember series. Now before I continue, I just want people to realise and know something. These Remember episodes are not a deep dive analysis really into anything in particular, and they aren't groundbreaking videos about anything new. This is literally me bringing up nostalgic memories from the truther community and culture throughout the past decade, and a little bit before that as well. And it's just to basically remind people of certain topics, okay? And I give a brief description of the history of what was going on during that time when that topic was in the forefront of people's minds and research. Today I want to talk about something that happened maybe around the 2013 to 2015 era. I think that was about the time all this stuff was happening. And during this era, we had these well-established and ingrained truther channels who were all kind of working together in like a round table circle group effort. And they were all on each other's shows all the time, and they were always doing live shows together, discussing in-depth world events, things that were happening in the news. And the main theme of what they were talking about was there were individuals out there who were in news broadcasts pretending to be victims of certain events. I'm trying to be clever with the words I use here, because a lot of channels got removed and banned for discussing these topics. But these are thespians who are paid to perform a specific role within mainstream media narratives that are shown on the news. Does that make sense? So the theory goes that every time something tragic happened where many people lost their lives, and let's say somebody with a particular powerful weapon went into a particular place full of incredibly vulnerable small people and then used that weapon, a lot of that was happening suddenly, and the news, the mainstream narrative, directed the camera on these events. And it seems like the family members who lost other family members in these gruesome events would do public statements. And a lot of these groups at the time were basically saying these people making these statements aren't really the family members. They are paid actors. They are actors who are paid to perform during a crisis. Okay, that's probably the best way I could try and say all of that without actually just outright saying what they are. Okay, in a succinct algorithm picking up phrase. And so that being said, there was a lot of this happening, and a lot of channels out there pointing to everything that happened and basically saying, you know, that's what they are, that's what they are, that's what they are. Those tears aren't real, it's all fake. And the interesting thing is that really, this is where it got trippy. While pointing out certain examples, they actually found that these paid individuals were playing different family members in different events from a different time within the mainstream media news. So it turns out they actually probably are correct in pointing out that this was actually happening. It wasn't simply just a conspiracy theory, a wild one, though people were shut down instantly for mentioning it. Demonetized, banned, instant ban for mentioning it. Okay? It was not allowed to be pointed out. And there was a lot of channels around this time who were all working together kind of exposing it. And it's kind of sad because these channels have vanished. I think one of the most famous ones at the time was somebody called Jeff C. Was it Free Revolution Radio or something like that, or Red Pill Revolution? There was these different people, these different groups, and they all kind of went on each other's radio stations all the time, and they all were always on each other's shows, and they were always going through live shows pointing this out. And I don't know this off the top of my head, but I think someone told me recently that Jeff C has actually passed away, which is sad. Very sad. We lost another one, I suppose. But he was one of these people who did mention this quite a lot. And it was a different time then. The conspiracy world and the world online was so different. It was before the mass exodus and the mass censorship. It was before then, and it was a different landscape. You could get away with more. You could really get away with doing and saying a lot more than you could now. And it was a wild west of conspiracy. It was a fun time to be a part of that culture, you know. And when I left to take a 5-year break against my will, you know, when I had to, that was still kind of happening and they were there. But when I returned, they're all gone. They don't make videos anymore. They don't exist. And from what I've heard, one of them's even dead now, you know, so the landscape has changed, and I've kind of come back and I'm scratching my head like, where is everyone? This is different now, and there's a lot more Gnostics around. That's kind of how I came into it and realised, you know, things have changed. But the concept that there were people in the mainstream narratives presented to us by the media and the news that aren't genuine, and they're just playing a character and a role to further agendas and create a false image of a situation that isn't true in order to push through certain legislative change. It's something we should be aware of. Something might still be happening. It probably is still happening, you know. And when you see a family member of a certain victim of whatever event start crying their eyes out to the media in a public statement, and then mixed in with that statement they start calling for tighter control on whatever, you have to wonder, it's like, what kind of grieving parent has time to make a political statement? who thinks like that? I don't think people really do. Maybe they do now because they're so heavily programmed to just instantly go that way and think that way, but that's not how a grieving parent would react. Or while I'm, you know, calling out the heinous actions of my child's murderer, make sure to vote yes on this particular bill. Do you know what I mean? Or we need our governments to put tighter control on A, B, and C. That's not the forefront of a parent's mind when they lose a child, you know, or whenever they lose, you know, whoever loses anybody, a husband loses a spouse, or whatever, it doesn't matter. You know, I can't be specific, unfortunately. I'm not allowed to be. Well, you know what I'm talking about. And who remembers being around during that time when all that was a huge, big thing, you know? And then there was this hoaxer movement. You know, all these events were false flag hoaxes. That's the phrase that was going around. Everything was a false flag. Everything was a false flag. And I do think it got to the point, you know, where it was blurring the lines a lot, and people didn't know what was and wasn't real anymore, and everyone was just like, okay, everything's fake, nothing's real, every event is a false flag or orchestrated event, no matter what, you know. And I think that there's something to that. Maybe that's true. Whenever they point the camera on, it's probably something they want you to actually be seeing. That much is probably true. But whether every single event that happens that they point the camera to was necessarily orchestrated by them, we can't say for sure. The earth is a complex thing with lots of people doing many things, you know, all at once, and things happen which aren't always in somebody's control. And what is in control is where they choose to point the camera, and they can always frame an event in a very narrow way and only show you what they need you to see that forwards their particular agenda. And the bigger picture stuff might tell a different story to what they've narrowed in on, you know. So the clever, they do that a lot. They're clever with how they present situations in order to forward their own agenda, that's for sure. And there's always a spin or a twist or a manipulative bent on a particular event. But there was this time where everyone was just basically picking apart everything that happened all the time. And they would have these meetings, these groups of big conspiracy theorists all together. And, you know, at the time, I remember the whole Ebola zombie thing was happening, you know, and they were all on that as well, and instantly saying, you know, this is a false flag hoax event instantly. And again, there was something to it all. There was a lot of truth mixed in with all this, you know, and I can see how it was easy to see all this and say all that. And I do think a lot of it is still happening today. I think a lot of events that are shown to us within social media now and mainstream media are there for a reason. Okay, okay, they want you to see it. If they've shown it to you on the TV, they want you to see it. You know, it has a role to play in the manipulation of our psyche. So if anything's to take away from the whole false flag hoaxer movement and the paid shill who were there to present false people within mainstream narratives, if that's shown as anything when that was an event in the past, it's that the media does not show you things by accident. That's the takeaway from it, you know. But yeah, it was a different time. It was a different time for sure. But who remembers these things? Who remembers these weird events where everything was a false flag, everything was a hoax, and everyone was hyper paranoid. Everyone was on edge all the time during this time. The conspiracy theorist culture was really just reeling through all these big events that were happening, one after the other, these tragic events, you know. And from this, people were like predictively trying to predict what was going to happen next, you know, and a lot of decoding of things was happening, saying this is going to happen on this date. There was a lot of date predictions during this time of when the end's going to come, or when a major event's going to happen, or something, or a mass sacrifice of some kind, or, you know, a lot of people were really just going deep into the stereotype, you know, that image of that conspiracy theorist with loads of dots connected by string on a wall, and they're pointing to it saying, this is going to happen, that's going to happen, this is connected, you see this, you know. There were a lot of people actually genuinely like that around that time, you know, who looked like the stereotype. I laugh about it now, because like I said, it really was a different time. Things can't be said so openly anymore. Not without people losing their livelihoods or simply just being shut up, you know, and not being able to share anything anymore. The political landscape has changed dramatically since then too. Social Marxist, left-wing liberal ideologies have had a strong grip on us for the past 5 years, I'd say, with minor revolutions in between, you know, from the identitarian right as well. And, you know, left or right to me is irrelevant, it's all part of the same coin. All play a vital role in keeping people divided and distracted, politically speaking. But that we have certainly been on that side of the spectrum for a while, and now we're getting backlash, and it's a strange and volatile world right now in terms of political ideologies, and how people interpret these big events now. I don't know. It's a weird one. It's not like it used to be. I think we've kind of got major global disaster event fatigue. I think we're all, it's just so much is happening one after the other now that we're kind of just over it. And we don't care anymore, and we've just kind of accepted that we're in a burning building, and it's like, oh, this is my fate. You know, people aren't so quick to kind of decode things anymore in major events, and when they do, it's passive. It's like, oh, you know, whatever, it is what it is. Now, what are we supposed to do? You know, people are kind of apathetic about it, and maybe that's what all of it was orchestrated, geared towards, making people just apathetic. It's like, well, it's all controlled, what can we do? Whatever. It's just all one big controlled narrative, you know, let's just get on with my own life and stop paying attention to it. You know, and I think that apathy is kind of the end goal. It's kind of, you get the prisoners to accept the bars and love the bars, you know, and whatever, it's that kind of thing. You get the you get the animals in the farm to accept that they're in a farm and just graze and whatever, and not bother trying to escape anymore. It's that kind of attitude, you know. People are just so over the corruption and so aware of the corruption that they just no longer bother with fighting the corruption anymore or whatever. They just kind of go with it. Yeah, maybe that's what it was all about. Maybe that's why there was such an influx of this hoaxer thing going on during that time period. Such an influx of decoding going on during that time period, and it was all really for naught. You know, although it may have woken a lot of people up, you know, to seeing that we are heavily controlled and corrupted, mainstream narrative wise. I suppose it did serve that function as well. But who remembers, guys? Who remembers that time period? Let me know if you were around during that time and if you remember these characters and these people. Yeah, it was a different time. Anyway, thanks for listening, and as always, God bless.
I want you to get together